Let's let them in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Just letting a few folks in here. But welcome to our event this morning with Be More with Anu. I'm so excited to see you. My name is Camille, and I am the course coordinator for Be More with Anu, and we're going to get started in a few minutes. Just waiting for a few more people to come in. Awesome. So like I said, I'm Camille Eddy. I am the course coordinator. Really happy to have you here, and I'm going to introduce you in a second. I'm just really excited myself to be here, and would love to have you put in the chat maybe what you would like to get from this event, what your intention is for being here today. I know I'm really interested in hearing more, and just also meeting you and seeing what we have in store for today. All right. Yeah, so I'll hand it off to you, Anu.
Thank you, Camille. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome, welcome, welcome to our first fall event on addressing DEI, belonging and justice in workplaces and community. Today's the first day of fall, so I really thought that what better time than now to really talk about the topic we'll be digging deeper into today, which is healing. So let me actually share my screen. And my hope is that, over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, you'll get to really experience what that means and also interact with one another to get deeper into this topic. But let me share my screen. And I know that people are still joining in, so I might just continue to welcome folks as they're coming in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You should be able to see my screen. And if you put a grid on the side, you can also see who else is here. We're so thrilled to have you. So my name is Anu Gupta. I'm a scientist, an educator, a lawyer, as well as the founder of Be More with Anu. And what I do is really I train organizations in breaking bias to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in workplaces and communities. And today's topic, the role of healing in advancing racial equity is at the heart of everything we do as a company, as an organization, but for me as well as a human being, as a person. So I'm really thrilled that you've taken time out to be here with us today. This is going to be an interactive session, so please, as much as you can, be present. It's only going to be 45 minutes. And before we begin, I will just say that, I, like yourselves, I too am a person, and healing is such an individualized and personal journey. So I don't have all the answers. And I hope you didn't come here for answers, but rather you came here to be with like-minded people like yourselves, to really begin to explore and be open to what healing means in this work that we're here to do together. So as in all of our events and all of our courses, I would love to invite you and join me in a short mindfulness exercise. So wherever you are, just come to a comfortable seated position. We're going to be here for a few minutes. We'll be talking about the role of healing in advancing racial equity. There's a lot of coded words there. I'm sure you all have so many different associations with what all of those things mean, aspirations, desires, you name it. So, but at this time, just taking a moment to let go of any thoughts, any expectations that may be arising, and really just go inward, perhaps bringing your eyes to a gentle close or placing your gaze at a stationary point in front of you. And for a few moments, just return to your body and see if you can bring your awareness to your breath. Notice this breath entering the body. Notice this breath leaving the body. If there's some agitation or activity in the mind, that's okay. Notice what the mind is doing. Perhaps there's thinking, there's planning, there's annoyance at technology. It's all welcome here. See if you can label it. Thinking, thinking, planning, planning. And then really returning your attention back to your breath and your body. See if there's any place in your body, from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, that feels a little tense or contracted. Perhaps your jaw, your shoulders, your hands, or your feet. Really noticing that energy of holding. And see if you can invite a gentle invitation to soften and to open up, relax, release, as we return to the present moment. And as you return to the present moment, reflect on what brought you here. Why did you sign up for this event in particular? And it wasn't just something someone shared or something you saw on our newsletter or social media. You had to go and take actions to actually sign up. What was that for you? Again, there are no right or wrong answers. It's just becoming mindful of our own intentions and of our own actions to want to be present in this community in this way together. And now slowly letting go of what you've discovered for yourself around what brought you here. The theme of our discussion today is healing. And I'd also like you to really reflect on, what does healing mean to you? What does healing mean to you? Not the world, not to me, not to Camille, but to you. And just staying there. And once again, gently letting go of what you discovered and returning back to the breath. And then after your next exhale, you can bring your chin to your chest. And if your eyes were closed, gently open them and return back to the room. So thank you so much for that 4-minute mindfulness practice with me. You know, mindfulness is really the core of everything we do. It is the core of what I teach when it comes to breaking bias, because what it does is helps us become aware. That's all what mindfulness means, to become aware and to notice what's happening in our experience in the present moment. So now I'd love for you all to share in the chat, you know, who you are, a little bit about yourselves, you know, and what brought you here. You know, we were able to reflect together a little bit on what that was for you. And, you know, I'll actually stop the share if people would want to, you know, be visible on video so you all can see one another. We see lots of names. But yeah, feel free to chat and I'll speak out loud what some folks are sharing. So what brought you here? What did you discover in our mindfulness practice together? Annalise shared earlier, I just want people's skin color to be as utterly irrelevant as their hair or eye color. Wonderful. Mitzi shared, I do not want my skin color to be irrelevant. To be irrelevant is to become invisible. I want the meaning that others give to my skin color to change. Wonderful. Michael, glad to join you all from Philly. As a DEI consultant, I want to renew myself and help others develop resilience in this work. How beautiful. Thank you, Michael. Kelly, here to meet you. Oh, thank you. I'd love to meet you too. Thank you for being here. Trisha, one of our alums. Welcome, Trisha. So good to see you from Oakland. Invite more healing as I continue to process what I'm continually learning about breaking bias. So wonderful. And Emily shared. She's from Indigenous lands here. Unfortunately, I don't know how to pronounce them, but thank you for bringing that into our circle. I'm here to continue my learning and how to walk with my community in this work. Thank you, Emily. We need you. So folks, continue to please share so-called Vancouver. It's okay. It's okay, Emily. Welcome. Yay, we have multiple nationalities here. So I would love for you to continue to share what brings you here, what brought you here. And as you'll see, as you'll begin to see that the reasons why we're here are different, right? From one person to another. For one person, for example, they shared that I want skin color to be irrelevant. And for another person, like, no, I don't want it to be irrelevant. What I want is the meaning that's attached to that to be irrelevant. And that's okay. Both of those aspirations can really live next to each other. Neither one of those things have to be right. They're so individualized and so personal. But as a result, when we do this work, what I've learned, having brought this work to over 20,000 people, that we need some shared agreements to really engage with this work fully. That really helps us be effective in what this means. So for us as a company, what that means is 5 shared agreements. First is really using I statements. It's really taking ownership of what you think, what you believe, what your opinions are, what your experiences are. And at least for our container here, not generalizing, using the royal we or theory in general, but be like, oh, I think, I've read. So it's really kind of focused on I. So I hope we can all agree to that. Second being commitment to dialogue. So you're all here, of course, because you care about healing and racial equity, but commitment to dialogue is really important. And the way Brene Brown describes it is it has like 2 components. One is really understanding and the other is compassion. So I would love for you to extend that to yourselves as well as everyone here as we continue to engage in this conversation. But also to me, right? I'm not perfect. So in any way, I still have blind spots. So in any way that I may misstep or misspeak, really being committed to dialogue in that way. Third, being staying present. We started our program today with a mindfulness exercise. And this topic of healing and racial equity and DEI, we can go to the past, we can jump to the future. There's so much happening in our minds. But see if when that happens and you become aware of it, if you can just come back to the present moment. Here you are, sitting in front of a screen, with all these wonderful people who are now strangers, but soon to be part of your community. So really staying present. Fourth is investigate discomfort. This is something I would highly, highly recommend because this is the somatics of what bias is and what DEI work is really about. So if there are emotions that arise, if there's body sensations that are uncomfortable, if there are memories that come up, really jot them down. Really, this is really good for you to know because this is the work, becoming a master of that is really going to help you advance this work in your own workplaces and communities. And then lastly, privacy and confidentiality. Of course, all the learning that we'll have today here can leave this container. But of course, if people have shared personally anything, please keep that private and confidential. Or if you'd like to share it, ask for their permission before tweeting about it or sharing it on social media. So I hope we can all agree to that, and this will be really our container. It really supports our learning and listening and discussion together. And whenever I see that we're not abiding by them, I'm just going to gently nudge that, hey, let's go back to I statements. Hey, let's go back to staying present. So with that, I would love for you all to use the chat once again. and share what healing is to you. We did this in our mindfulness exercise, and if a few of you have just joined us after our mindfulness exercise, that's okay. Just using the chat function, really share if you're able to, if you're willing to. To me, healing is. What is healing to you? So I'll stop sharing my screen so we can see one another and I can see you. Emily shared, healing to me is staying soft. Kristen, to me, healing is letting grief in. Beautiful. Ashley, healing to me is to fully accept myself as I am and as enough in order to help and encourage others to do the same. Healing is being compassionate, which is being aware, says Lisa. Michael, coming into wholeness with the self or mutuality with others. Annalise, to me, healing is accepting the past for what it is. It is the past, and I cannot change it. Jem, healing is resolving hurtful feelings. Trisha, healing is taking power away from triggers. Kelly, learning to listen to what needs care and attention. And Mitzi, it's a process, not an event. Trisha, another Trisha, the ability to think of things experienced that once hurt, pained me, that no longer hold those emotions. My gosh, just reading all of these beautiful shares, I find that healing because we're really getting to the multidimensionality of this experience we call healing. And particularly when we talk about healing around this topic of, breaking bias, advancing DEI, addressing racial bias in our society and other forms of biases. So to build this container and go deeper, I really want to have another voice come into the circle on what healing means, which has been really helpful for me in really doing this work, and which is the voice of one of our beloved teachers and leaders and elders, Dr. Martin Luther King. And what he shared was that as my suffering mounted, I soon realized that there were two ways in which I could respond: react with bitterness or seek to transform the suffering into a creative force. I decided to follow the latter course. This is what Dr. King said around what healing really meant to him, to really transform the suffering he experienced into a creative force. And Jem's sharing, healing is being able to forgive and move forward in life without being held back by past issues. Absolutely. So I think this really takes me to why I do what I do and how we got here. For me, healing is central to the work we do at Be More with the New. And my journey with activism in general, I was really hurting because of the experience I had as a young adult, as an immigrant, as a person of color, as a gay person, as so many intersectionalities of our identities that all of you also have. And all of those things had caused me emotional wounds. And the way I responded to that or reacted to that was often through anger. And for me, I kept on doing it, lots of frontline activism. Yet I saw that I was still suffering emotionally, even when I was heard, even when I got help. And I was still, failing financially, emotionally, socially. I remember a year after law school, when I was doing a lot of frontline racial and gender justice work, my mother told me, I really can't talk to you anymore because everything I say, you cut me off. And I saw that happening across, my social relations. So for me, that was like a wake-up call. Oh my gosh, I'm hurting. And because I'm hurting, I'm using my voice, my actions, my behaviors to hurt others. And as Dr. King said, I actually came across this book by him, this quote by him then, and I was like, oh, wow, this is the opportunity for me to turn the gaze inward, not to look away from all the injustice and inequalities that exist, but turn the gaze inward to see where healing can actually help me and support me in moving forward. So with that, what I want to do now is something very daring. And we actually have never done this in a community event like this, particularly with folks that, I don't personally know, because usually we do this all the time in our courses, but I am going to put you in touch with one another. So my colleague Camille in a few moments will put you in small breakout groups. And it's going to be very small. It'll be groups of 2 or 3. So we meet some of the other people here. So I'd love for you to introduce yourselves to the people that are in your group, your name and where you're calling in from or signing in from. But I would also love for you to just share, again, noticing these shared agreements, using I statements, commitment to dialogue, staying present, really investigating discomfort as you're listening and speaking, of course, privacy and confidentiality. What is healing to you? What is healing to you? However you receive that. So in a moment, Camille will share the breakout groups with you, and we'll see you back here in 4 minutes. So it's not very long. We'll come back and we'll talk about what you felt. So see you all in 4 minutes. So welcome back, everyone. Let me share my screen just so we have the prompt once again. So the prompt was really you all sharing with one another what healing is to you. So I would love for you all to share in the chat. And if you feel called to unmute yourself, really, what was your reflection as you were listening, as you were staying present to what you were hearing, but also what you were sharing, most likely with a stranger around something that is so tender and personal. So yes, I see Mitzi, you've unmuted yourself. Yes, please share. Well, I can't hear you though, unfortunately. For other folks, please feel free to share in the chat as well. Oh no, we had tech issues in our group. Sorry to hear that. But would you like to share now, Emily? Oh, there you are. We can hear you.
Me?
Yes, Mitzi.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And thank you for this opportunity. And when you mentioned this healing, and I immediately went to an experience I had when I was probably in about 4th grade. And I was just playing with some kids in my neighborhood, and one was a little girl, and we were just playing, and she said, "You want to come over to my house?" Like little girls do. I want to go play at my house. And when we got there, her father said, "Well, she can't come in because we don't allow coloreds." And back then it was colors in our house. And that was the first time that was introduced to me, and I still remember the hurt. Oh my gosh. It took many years for me to be able to tell that story and not I'm able to move it to a different place in my brain, so I don't have that visceral response, but I still remember it, what it felt like. And I think that's what healing is when you do work, any kind of trauma work, you move it to a different place in your brain, so it becomes it becomes part of your history, so you can tell the story without having that visceral anger, hurt. It's not painful. So that's what I went back to. I still remember her name and her
Yeah,
and what he looked like, and I still remember that. So thank you for
yeah.
allowing me to tell that story.
Thank you, Mitzi. I mean, it's such a vulnerable thing to share. And it's so important, right? Because as you shared, I could just see how, as you were sharing, like that hurt has healed, but the scar of that wound is still there. Especially when you
Mhm.
shared that I still remember her name and I remember her father.
Mhm.
Fourth grade, I mean, for me, fourth grade was a very long time ago. So I can only imagine, how
Mhm.
much, for me, like 20 years ago, and yet that memory is still there.
Mhm.
And that's what, healing to you is. So thank you for that. Um, Other folks, also curious to see folks share in the chat if you don't want to, as you were listening to other people's stories, what was happening for you and, um, you know, and where you're still curious, where you're challenged around this. Trisha, yes.
Can you see me? I'm having video issues.
I can see you. So good to
Okay,
see
excellent.
you.
Hello. In my discussion with Ashley, I appreciated the opportunity to like in real time uncover that I was covering. So I introduced myself. I said, I work for a large healthcare corporation. And then I was like, why did I say that? Like Kaiser Permanente has a name. And in that time, I was looking at her and I was like, I think I don't say it because I feel this tremendous burden and responsibility to deliver on so many people and such huge impact that I was covering that and I didn't know previously.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, Trisha. Thank you for sharing that. And these things become habits that are so unconscious and they're so like seemingly minute, but they go to that deeper wound, right? Of covering and running away from where the pain is. Thank you, Trisha. Um, Other folks, maybe one or two other folks, before I kind of really talk about why this is really important around advancing racial equity. Well, I know this is a very private thing, so I think we'll have a little bit more time to really get deeper into the discussion. Trisha also shared healing to me is the ability to sit with the pain, process it, and come through it and be able to share, talk about it without fear and shame. It is freedom. Yeah, beautifully described. Beautifully described. And I think when it comes to this work that we do around diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as now belonging and justice, at the end of the day, what we're really seeking on the other end, maybe not we, what I am seeking on the other end, is really healing. There was some harm done or is continuously done. There needs to be some repair of that harm. It needs to be repaired. People that need to be made whole again in that way. And for me, what that really means is what we do as an organization, um, called the Be More journey. And what that really means is, after having done a lot of research, from psychology to neuroscience to human behavior, we know that, civil rights was in the mid 50s now, right? So legally, we've changed a lot of the laws that, basically prohibit people from active discrimination based on race or gender or other forms of protected classes. Yet the level of disparities are pretty egregious, and we've just seen that in the last decade and the last year in particular with the murder of George Floyd. So what is going on? Like, what do we need to solve for this? What do we need to actually advance this conversation of DEI, belonging, and justice? And for me, it's really about building specific competencies. And having done this work around human behavior and neuroscience of what changes people's behavior, what changes people's beliefs, beliefs, habits, and behavior, and their perceptions, is really about these things. And for me, it's basically a threefold journey. The first being learn, which is all about the left brain. We're basically learning what we don't know. We're bridging the information gap. And that stage is really built up of awareness, comprehension, which I think most of you are very familiar with, but also the sense of optimism and curiosity. Those two competencies are actually part of the learn stage, because oftentimes, and this was really true for me for a very long time, I was just so cynical and so defeated. It was like, nothing's going to change. And our academic training actually trains us in critique, in finding faults. So it actually dims down the competencies of optimism and curiosity. So while we can be really good at critique, I'm not saying we take that away, but we kind of balance that with the possibility of change. So that's kind of the learn stage. And then we need to develop the skills that actually help us implement what we know, the awareness and comprehension. So this is like, I know that I know how to cook, let's say, a chicken curry, but I need to practice cooking it so it can be better and better and better, just as any skill, whether it's advocacy or teaching. So it's about learning those skills. And the development of what we know really is leaned on skillful communication, so which includes both listening and speaking. Well-being. This is very critical. Well-being is actually a skill, a competency of us taking care of ourselves. Collective identity, which is, we know that we need to feel comfortable around diverse people, right? But actually feeling comfortable around people from different backgrounds and feeling connected to them, right? So that's very different, knowing it and then feeling it. And then, of course, empathy and compassion. This is critical, particularly self-compassion and self-empathy. So if there are ways you're wounded, noticing the judgment that still remains, like, why haven't I gotten over this? As Mitzi shared, for her, I'm sure she's done a lifetime of work around self-compassion to really address the wounded person, the fourth grader who was dehumanized in such a way at such a young age. And when we kind of bring these two things together, these 8 competencies, what we feel is a sense of empowerment and social cohesion, which this is really about being able to change things, feeling empowered, kind of what one of my mentors and coaches, Ra Gada, says, moving from a mindset of feeling like a victim to being a visionary. In our small spheres, big spheres, doesn't matter how scale, but it's like feeling empowered in our own bodies, our own experience. And social cohesion, which is being able to not just feel connected to, which is collective identity, but being able to collaborate, partner. And that's what's really needed, And healing is kind of the central of that, because healing happens, as we develop these skills, so we can get on the other side. So I'll kind of stop there. That was basically my quick spiel on how to, use healing and why healing is so critical to advancing racial equity. I'd love any questions or insights you may have around this, as we come to a close in a few minutes.
This is Mitzi again. Sorry, this is Mitzi again, because I really think, I just so believe that healing is deliberate, and that it has to somewhere be a choice. And I'm saying that slowly because I don't want persons who haven't made the choice to feel that it's an indictment, because it's not that. However, I do think that every day I wake up, I make a choice of how I show up, and so there's some deliberateness in that. Not, and I used to say intentional and deliberate, but I don't use the word intentional anymore, because intentional means I intended to, but I may not get it done. Deliberate means I have a plan. I'm processing that. And I do believe that our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors are connected and driven by our experiences, and that we have to reframe that so that we can show up differently, not just for
Absolutely.
others, but for ourselves.
Totally agree. And I also want to be curious here because I think for you that makes so much sense, but I could also see for someone else, sometimes without being deliberate, healing just happens. And that hasn't happened for me, but I know people who have. So kind of staying in that sense of curiosity simultaneously, because what you're sharing makes sense to me because that is literally what I do every day too, being deliberate around it. And I know folks for whom it just happened. Something just turned. And that's the mystery of, what you shared, cognitive behavioral theory, but also how differently wired all of us are. Peter,
Yeah.
Peter, do you want to share something or ask a question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was so intrigued by all the great conversations, and I also had a great conversation with our chat room, with our breakout room. It was pretty awesome. My scenario is that we're always I'm continuing learning this aspect of healing because the whole aspect of healing is there's still sorrow, there's still pain, there's still it's hard to forgive. You can forgive, but you can't forget. And so this healing scenario psychologically can mess you up in aspects because you can be with positive group, but you also can be with the negative group as well. But to me, it's a learning process in life. Healing, when someone dies, a loved one, there's sorrow, there's such dramatic, it's such tragically scenario, but healing to me is an ongoing process. And I know that I just wanted to share that it's you're living life. There's circumstances are beyond our control, but the aspect of healing to me is, for me, it's ongoing.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, because when I think for me personally, as I'm listening to Peter, I'm reminded that every time I heal something, some wound, another one appears and another one appears. I'm like, oh my gosh, healing is continually happening. Like just a few weeks ago, a friend of mine, we were being playful and he called me dirty. And I was in a trance. Like I was, like Mitzi shared, in my fifth grade classroom, where I remembered people calling me dirty and bullying me for that because I was of Indian heritage and Indian was supposed to be dirty, all those things. And I was like, wait, I did what? And that hadn't happened yet. And I was like, whoa, another opportunity, another wound that has come up around this. So Peter, absolutely agree. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
We're coming on time, and I will share that I'll stick around after our time for just any Q&A or any other, what we call office hours. If you have any other concerns, happy to stick around for a few minutes. But for those of you that have to leave, I just want to share a few other things. One is, we'd love for you to be a part of our community, our learning community of professionals. We're over several thousand strong, and all of our courses are really about healing. And, we have 3 courses right now: Breaking Unconscious Bias and Breaking Bias in Healthcare, which are both 1 hour long, and they're self-directed. And then we have a 5-week course, which is a 25-hour commitment that Tricia has been a part in, called Breaking Racial Bias. And that is really about moving into all 10 of those competencies and really understanding the nature of racial bias and how to address it in ourselves and within our workplaces and community. So please, check it out on our website. We'll send an email out with a special offer for you if you'd like to sign up for any of these programs. Also, there'll be another event like this next month. And the theme for our next month's event is optimism. So please, do sign up for that if you'd like to be part of it and really talk about these things. And then lastly, please follow us on social. Please stay engaged with us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. our hope is to really begin to bring this way of being and focused on healing in this conversation of advancing, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and justice. So hopefully you'll interact with us and we can together make a greater impact together. Trisha shared, yes, I appreciated the Be More journey that was effectively framed for my learning and generated the safe space I needed to learn and share openly. Oh, thanks, Trisha. And then some best practices after this community session. Always, whenever we talk about topics like healing, something gets triggered consciously or unconsciously. So I'd love for you to give yourselves 15 to 30 minutes to recover emotionally. Whether you need to do some yoga, get embodied, walk, breathe, please do that for yourselves. Oh, hi, Ashley. I'm so glad. Yay. And then, stick around for a few more minutes if you'd like any other questions. I do want to end with one quote before you all leave, which is, our sorrows and wounds are healed only when we touch them with compassion. So this is the core of the work for each one of us moving forward. So I hope, before you leave, you can share one commitment for your healing, just speaking it out loud or putting it in the chat. And, I want to thank you all for coming. I'll stick around for a few more minutes if you have any questions. But yeah, I would love to read some commitments that you have for your healing. Perfect. Thank you all. Emily, check out your website. Wonderful. Any other commitments? Or also, for folks who are here, do you have any questions? Anything else you'd like to address, beyond what I shared?
I just wanted to ask, if I may, Anu, will there be a additional series with healing down the road?
Yeah, so basically all of our community programs are about healing. So next month is really about optimism. At the end of the day, as I shared with you, the Be More journey, the end goal is really healing. And so there's another one coming up in November, where we'll be talking about these challenges. And then we'll do a very beautiful gathering in December for our community, possibly a little bit of longer event.
Thank you.
So yeah, please keep an eye on our website and our newsletter for all of them. Of course, Peter, good to see you here. Anything else, you all? So good to see you all. Could you put the website in the chat? Yes, I can. It's www.bemore. It's bemorewithanu.com. Yes. Perfect. And Camille has also shared it. And she hyperlinked it too. So you can just click on it now. Any other questions or concerns that you want to ask us about or share in this community before we say goodbye? Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for coming. It was so good to see you all. I look forward to continuing to engage with you all either through our courses or, or in one of our community sessions or social media even. All right, take good care. Bye-bye.